Hello, my friends. Welcome to our front yard tour. So this is our rewilding tour, and I'm currently sitting on the front porch, and you can see that there's a narrow sidewalk that leads out to the road, and I'm also quite hidden right here, aren't I? And you're gonna see a very loud vehicle go by here in a moment. Yes, because we're that close to the road, and that's why I want to just sit here for a moment and chat, because this is very different than when we started, and it continues to evolve, this project right here, this rewilding area, and it's guided by many things. And one of them is, what were the plants that were here? And then what did we think we were going to do? And then what did we actually plant? What lived, what didn't? And then does it hide us from the road, or at least give us a little bit of privacy? And then what might we need to change in the future because, oh, it's kind of a pain in the butt to maintain. And it's all those things that have led us through this path. And then now, the primary driver for all of this, which is why we end up having some of the things that are a pain to maintain, is how much life is using what we have planted here or what has grown here. And that honestly is the primary driving factor for everything, because the life is remarkable. And some plants we see way more use on than others. And we're going to talk about that here in a moment. But I just wanted to sit here so that you could see when Steve and I sit on this porch, which is almost always on the floor because we're just floor dwellers, this is what we get to see. And right here is facing north. This porch is on the northeast side of our house. And it's a really pleasant place to sit. And I love that nobody can see us when we're here. And we've done different things. So let me just tell you about that for a moment. Right there, those plants that almost at this moment look like hostas are American spikenard. And we have planted them all over the place. And in some areas, they are teeny tiny because they're fighting with shade, they're fighting with dryness, but these have that perfect mix of sun and shade, and so they are just cranking. They have grown probably 1.5 to 2 feet since we planted them. That red maple was here when we moved in, and then there is a decaying stump out there, which we'll see when we walk out there in a minute, and otherwise none of these woodies were here. Those of you that have followed the channel for a long time, you've heard me talk about that. And so the woodies have been a really great part of the structure of this area. And I'm sorry that I always say woodies. Steve reminds me that a lot of people don't know what that means. It is just the trees, small trees, and then I call the wildflowers forbs. So if I revert into that language, please forgive me and know what I'm talking about. And so we planted those, and at first we thought this area is going to be ashy sunflower and little blue stem, and we smothered the yard that was here with cardboard and straw, and then we planted those seeds. Well, then it got too shady for them, obviously, and so they petered out real quick. Then we got some woodland wildflower seeds, and we put those on top of the cardboard and the straw. Well, it was dry that year. They didn't germinate. And a lot of them have really difficult stratifications anyways, so I never advise to get those big packs of woody wildflowers. Sorry, not woody wildflowers, but forest wildflower seeds, because the germination rates are going to be pretty low and the seeds are expensive. Then we just started seeing, well, who came in? And Steve started scattering a lot of grass seeds such as bottlebrush and beetgrass, and those are so happy out here. They just really love it. And so let's just walk out here for a moment. It's going to get kind of bright because the sun is out, which we're so happy about. It was in the 40s last night, and it's going to be in the 40s for a few nights. And a lot of people are real excited about that because we've had some hot temps. But it's interesting when I look at the growing degree days, we are right on average because May has been so chilly, or was so chilly, and then August now has had 2 weeks, not back to back, but 2 weeks of cool temps. Usually this is a hot month. We have wild senna right here, and they planted themselves. Well, how did that happen? Well, I am a major seed pod collector. I think they're one of the most beautiful parts of nature that I've ever seen that I can bring home. And so these are from last year, and they're looking all dusty and old because they're a year old. They will get refreshed soon, but oh, look at this wild senna. And so obviously they germinated. And you can see that some of this stuff here, just like everywhere here, gets real tall. And so we just tie some strings around here and there. Oh, look, there's Alvin. Hi, Alvin. And this is pretty wild. This area right here was actually growing a whole bunch of goldenrod when we moved in here. So it was already like that. False sunflower. Okay, I'm going to turn around. Hey, catbird, it's all right. Just let you see from this angle. You'll see my pile of coats because burr. This is a mix of sun and shade, and it is a wild mashup of plants, and it changes from year to year based on who germinates, who doesn't, and what are we doing in this area. So next year we're probably going to have something kind of different over in there on the south side of the house because we have a few veggies, little vegetables and herbs that we want to grow, and then that'll help us with a challenge there on the corner. Now these really tall plants are a native lettuce, a lactuca, and we didn't plant any of them, but they are a windblown seed, and so they are able to come up in all kinds of places. And we don't weed them out when they come up because guess what? American goldfinches adore them. They have been feasting on them. So our whole point here in doing this is to live in a place that feeds non-human life and that also feeds our spirits. And so for us, our spirits feel the most happy, the most peaceful, the most joyful when we're amongst wild mashups of plants. Now, how do you like that terminology? So Steve said something to our friends the other day that was really interesting to hear out of his mouth, because he said, and this is going to be just kind of like what he said, Jennifer has a very visceral opposition to manicured, super managed gardens. And I would agree with that. And everybody is different. If you are a person that loves those, I'm just so happy that you love something too. And so my main message here with that is everybody needs to do what feels right. And that rightness should feel good in your spirit and good in your motivation for doing this work for the world. Because it is work for the world, but you are part of the world. You are part of it. This needs to bring you that joy, bring you contentment, and let you keep going and doing the work and not just get you frustrated and then decide to mow it all down and get rid of it because you're so angry about the whole thing or frustrated. And I have been frustrated with certain parts in the past, which mostly involved a lot of those managed, highly manicured gardens. So guess what? They got tossed. But the ones that bring me joy, like these, the plants having autonomy, getting to do what they want to do, that feels like magic. Now, I did a video in here in the spring or early summer when everything was really green and lush, and we are not there now because we have had the heat, and then we have been on the low end of moisture. But also, it's just that time of the season when plants are going to be senescing. So this right here is the remainder of a bottle brush grass. There we go. That's all that's left. And we've got a whole bunch of that in here. This is a coffee tree because, again, my seed and pod collecting, coffee tree seeds are not super easy to germinate. They need nicked or cut open a little bit, and then they can swell up with water, but their seed coat is so tough. So I never thought that they would just decide to germinate right here. And coffee trees are so amazing that I don't know what we're going to do. We can't obviously move that one, and also we can't cut it down. So so maybe they're just going to be best friends here with this red bud. Look up there. I cannot believe this red bud. We planted that. How are they this big already? How? Okay. We're getting out here by the road. I hear loud equipment. We'll just kind of stay here for a moment. There's the gate. Here is the other part. This tree stump that was here when we moved here. Sometimes branches fall down from, this is staghorn sumac because there's a whole bunch above us, and then they just get tossed to become organic matter. Look down there. Do you see those green fruit clusters? That is from Jack in the Pulpit. So do you see what I mean out here? I mean, we have asters, we have goldenrod, we have cut plant, we have all of those small trees. We have Jack in the Pulpit. There is black cohosh in here. There is thimbleweed. There are so many different things going on because this is that right balance for many plants on light, or at least within their realm of tolerability. Is that right? I don't know. And so this area always changes because the sumac will root sucker, and then also they are short-lived. And so parts die, parts live, the sun changes. And right now in the shade here, it's chilly. Now look at, isn't that porch so inviting? I want to show you more. So let's just go a little bit around here. This jewelweed that grows up in the fence, they planted themselves. The hummingbirds have been nectaring on them all day. It's growing everywhere around here. We've had just enough moisture. These asters planted themselves, and we use this fence to kind of keep a path for ourselves. You can see that is kind of a difficult one because there's really tall plants there. So we have to manage that. Sometimes we have to prune. Pushing works really well. If I put on long sleeves, I can just push the itchy plants back without having to cut them. And that for me is mostly the cut plant. Look at those beautiful prayer flags. Our wonderful friends made them, and there's fungus, persimmon, common milkweed, a really cool caterpillar snake lizard, pawpaw, box turtle, and a squash, one of the buttercup squashes. They're so talented. Those flags are awesome. Okay. It's pretty enchanting, isn't it? Look at this light that comes through here. When we pull up to our house after having been away, it always makes my heart sing because I go, my gosh, some interesting people must live there. And I'm not saying that because Steve and I are like, oh, so cool, but really it's because someone is letting plants grow. Lately, it has been really tough to see all the roadsides and fields mowed. So much milkweed is getting mowed right now, and there are all these super generation caterpillars on there. And so when you pull up somewhere and there's plants that are allowed to grow, it feels so right. And so that's part of our motivation here too, is the more we can grow, the more that will grow. That's what is happening, because we want to do all we can to provide food and resources for non-human life. And here we are. We're at the road. Sounds like the truck's coming. We're going to dip back in here real quick. Look at that. It is gorgeous, that trumpet creeper. It just says, come right in. Of course, we have our signs out here trying to help folks know what we're doing, but also to say this is what we stand for, and this is what we fight for, this is what we live for. Okay, we'll go the other way here, and then we'll wrap up our front yard tour. I hear insects in here. The songsters have gotten kind of quiet because of the cooler temps, but they love these different layers of plants. It is critical for them to have resting places as well as food. And August is the month of songsters. In here we have annuals like the jewelweed, and then also the dwarf bush honeysuckle, and then these plants, the bundleflower and senna that came up because of my seed pods. There's a silver spotted skipper resting right there on the senna. We'll move some plants out of here, and then we'll figure things out over time. We just kind of change and go with what works. Oh my gosh, like look back there, that is a persimmon. Oh jeez. Because I put persimmons on the porch all the time. Here we are in the thickets. Oh yeah, the thicket. And it has its pluses and its minuses. The minuses mostly being that they will flop into the path after a heavy rain or wind, and then you're gonna have to do something like push. Now look right there, the star of the front yard by the sidewalk right there is giant ragweed, and they're starting to put on their seeds. It's so exciting. Soon we are going to see the cardinals and the grosbeaks feasting, and we'll be so close they won't even know that we're there. These brown-eyed Susans, they look so happy right now, and we didn't plant them there. We have brown-eyed Susans in other areas on the property, and so they no doubt came in from seed there, and they are a biennial, and so then they'll drop their seeds, and they'll probably just keep coming back in this spot if they're happy, if they have enough moisture. And then they're followed up behind there by this really beautiful clump of cup plant. And then a redbud that is deciding if they want to live or not. We did some trimming on the redbud, and redbud is susceptible to certain type of insect or disease, and I don't remember what it is at this moment. And when you cut them, then they get opened up to it even more so. Here is our driveway edge, another big mashup, a spice bush that a bird planted there, New England aster that is yet to flower. They're so late. The goldfinches are already starting to pick around in the seeds of cup plant. There's bergamot that is finishing for the year. And of course there's thimbleweed. They're not quite ready. They're still green, but soon they'll erupt in this really neat plume of gray seeds. And then there is witch hazel in here, and there's grape intertwined amongst all of this, and we do periodic grape management. But the other day we came across a Pandora Sphinx caterpillar, a remarkable caterpillar, and they feast on grape and Virginia creeper. And so it's always that balance of everything, isn't it? And whether we get the balance right or not, I'm not quite sure, but we try hard, and we try by paying attention. And then you can see, because I've talked about this one, it's really cool, this overarching limb, but I think we'll trim that one off this winter because it's casting a lot of shade on the Circle Drive area. Well, my friends, this is the front yard. And the front yard isn't really a yard at all, is it? No, it is a whole bunch of plants doing their great work in the world and providing us with an area to be, to reside, to live in, where we feel like we are part of nature, which I truly believe we are. It's where we came from. We've just forgotten. And so this puts us back into where we have come from, where we need to be. It gives us compassion. It gives us some understanding and nourishment. And I don't know about you, but we love nourishment and enjoyment. And we love to watch all these other lives that call this place home. Because it's not just our home, is it? That word our, that's something you hear me talk about a lot, because this is all of ours. All of it. Front yard lesson: be ready to evolve and adapt.